Okay. We will call this.
Recording in progress.
We will call this meeting to order and start with roll call by planning.
Okay, committee member Ambrosia, committee member Kenna,
Present.
committee member Lisa,
Here.
committee member Joshua,
Yes, thank you.
committee member Bill,
Here.
committee member Zeno,
Present.
and committee member Mauer.
Here.
And we're missing, it looks like Alex, Emmett, and Diana. But we do have a quorum. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Joshua, do we have any action items to review?
I do not have any action items from last time.
All right, then we'll move on to comments from the public regarding items not on today's agenda. I see we have 2 members of the public present. I don't see anyone on Zoom, so have your way with 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. Zeno, if you can turn off your computer audio.
Yeah, I cannot hear anything. I'm trying to. The room is, I cannot hear anything in the room, so I'm trying to set up something.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay, perfect. So anyone need to declare a conflict of interest today? No? Thank you. All right, so we will move on to our regular agenda. I want to make sure that all our members have full accessibility to the meeting. Zeno, do you need help with getting is the transcript running that he could use closed captioning? Well, hello. Grab a chair, please. Anywhere you want to be, anywhere you're comfortable, preferably near a microphone. But you can share. We can share. We're just working on accessibility to make sure all the committee members can hear or have access to a transcript. I know. We should threaten them more often. Exactly.
Okay, so it's going to show on the screen there. I don't know that.
Okay. The closed captioning is now turned on if you have your computer open. Zeno, can you hear? The closed captioning is turned on now.
Let me try that. I'm sorry about this. I cannot hear anything in this room.
How does anyone know how to help him turn it on his screen?
Yeah, it would be in his settings, basically. So when I do it over here, all that does is it puts it on the screen here, but each person has their own closed caption settings on their computer.
It looks like John.
So, yeah. You know where to find it.
We're upping our accessibility game.
Show captions there. See where it says show captions up at the top? There you go. Now they should show up for you as well.
All right. Thank you, tech team. Do we need to update our roll call? Do you guys want to do that?
Committee member Rich,
Present.
committee member Alex is here and Emmett. Okay, so we do have a quorum of
Great, thank you. All right, back to our regular agenda, working group reports for activities not on the agenda. Does any working group have anything to report? All right, yeah,
So our zero waste working group is going to be pivoting, and I will be taking the role and on our, or the lead, if you will. So yeah, and we're going to be working on some projects, and we're just shifting a little bit. So that's all I have for right now, unless you want to add something, Diana.
I'll just add that it's been a pleasure working with the working group, Zero Waste Working Group, and that I'm pleased that we have a new lead over here.
all right, thank you for stepping up. Any other working groups have anything? I see a working group.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
just
which one.
Real quick, Energy and Finance Working Group. With the results of the election, we're all sad. And one thing to keep in mind is the Inflation Reduction Act that was brought on by the reconciliation process by Congress and can be withdrawn or curtailed by that same process. And we can expect the Republican administration to move on that front because the 2017 tax cuts are also going to be part of that reconciliation process. So they have very big incentives. That's going to expire in 2026. So they're getting their ducks in a row for the reconciliation process. And I recommend that people that are considering electric cars, considering electrification or efficiency upgrades on their home or business, now in the next few months is the time to really get our ducks in a row and get moving on that. So I'm asking people to put out the word to, if you know people that are interested in electric cars or electrification, kind of nudge, nudge. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Any other working groups have anything to say today? All right, well, we will move on to, unless there's public comment. So if you haven't been to one of our meetings before, we're pretty loose with the public comment. So if you have anything to say, just let me know. You can throw spit wads at me if I don't pay attention. Perfect. Yeah, go ahead, introduce.
So this lovely human over here is Michael Simonitis. He is part of our working group. He owns a business called Waste Busters, and he is just amazing. So Michael Simonitis.
Great, welcome, yay.
And he does a lot more than that. So
All right, so calling for public comment on the working group reports, and seeing none, I am moving to regular agenda item B, discussion/potential action, group composition of CAC, discussion to be led by planning. So I will turn it over to John.
Sure. So I'm going to go kind of quickly through the memo that was included as part of the agenda item today. On October 8th, 2024, the upcoming Climate Action Committee recruitment was first discussed, with an understanding that the CAC has a flexible composition. Multiple applicants with overlapping backgrounds have been appointed over the years, while other roles have been left unfilled. In discussion with the city clerk, it has now come to our attention that we need to appoint one member for each role until the city council has formally approved a change to the group composition. So as noted, officially, the adopted roles, the Climate Action Committee will consist of 11 to 13 members from the following backgrounds. So 2 city council members, SCTA or RCPA, and Zero Waste Sonoma reps, 1 planning commissioner member with a climate background, 1 member of city staff, planning director or his or her designee, 1 zero waste representative, 2 youth members, climate background, resides within Sebastopol city limits, resides outside of Sebastopol city limits, but within the 95472 zip code, a Sebastopol business owner, Sebastopol Climate Action, or other local climate group representative, an environmental justice / equity background, and in a rights of nature background. So our request tonight is to have a discussion about this group composition and provide city staff with a recommendation. If you are okay with continuing with this setup here. If you're not, we would have to send this to the city council for a formal reformation setup of your group. If 11 to 13 members is too much, I know that we've been having difficulty getting a quorum, which is 7 members. So, going forward, if we are unable to make a quorum, we're not allowed to have the meeting going forward. So there could be potential disruptions in the kind of overall makeup of the group if we're consistently not making a quorum on a regular basis. So with that, happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
I have just a clarification. I think one of the reasons that we're finding this isn't working is because we're having a very difficult time finding one person for each of those categories. So some of them we have a lot of people from, some of them we've never had anyone from. And with this new interpretation that we have, we're really looking for you to tell us which ones we have to have. So if there are core 5 or 6 things that you want members to absolutely be representing, tell us what those are. And we write the rest of them as, remaining members may be from one of the following rather than having a specific category for each one. We really want to hear from you how you think that should be composed, what's important to you. I know the youth member is a struggle, but also really important. And we have a requirement for 2 of them right now. So help us out.
Can I ask a clarifying question? And if you guys have questions, please, I think maybe we can clarify and then start commenting. So when we say, when I'm reading, it says 11 to 13 members, then for instance, the 2 youth members. If we say 2 youth members, but one of them is not filled, the second is a ghost that still sets the number for quorum.
Correct.
So if it says 11 to 13, even if we only have 11 members, 13 is still
The quorum number.
the
Yeah,
quorum number, despite the fact that 11 is considered an acceptable number for the committee.
correct. Because it gives I think the option of between 11 and 13. So if you wanted, it would have to say 11 members or 13 members if you wanted to remove that ambiguity. All of our other groups say 5 members, so 3 is a quorum.
Gotcha.
But the fact that you guys have a flexible number does make it more difficult, and we have to go by the highest.
You have to go by
number.
the highest
Yeah.
number. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I had a question. What you've provided here, the list of 13 members, looks like 12 categories. Which of these slots is currently filled from the perspective of the planning department?
The one member of city staff would be
Can we start at the top? So we have 2 city council members, that's
Cor-
filled.
correct.
Okay,
The planning commissioner member is vacant currently right now.
okay,
City staff is filled.
okay.
Zero waste is filled with Ambrosia. We have 2 vacant youth members. Climate background from our counts is essentially everybody else within this room. And there's a mix of folks that are both within city limits and outside of city limits. Currently, we do not have a business owner filled. The climate background is similar to the climate action, Sebastopol Climate Action or other local group representative. There's some overlap there. And the remaining 2 environmental justice background and rights of nature background are currently vacant.
All right, and the total number of members on the Climate Action Committee currently?
Nine,
9, and all those are present today,
except for Alex.
Except for Alex.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have 9 people on that. Thank you.
Does the number of members need to be stated firmly in the composition standards, or can't, I mean, I think the intention with 11 to 13 was to allow that flexibility. Why is it that if, for instance, the committee membership lands at 9 or 11, that the quorum doesn't shift as well? The quorum can't shift depending on the actual makeup?
That's a good question. I think because that number is there and listed as part of the adopted group composition, that we have to recognize that.
I think my next question is, do we always have to specify what the number of members on the committee shall be?
Yes.
And therefore, where the quorum, we cannot leave that open to availability of qualified members?
No.
No, I don't.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think so. Because the way the Brown Act rules work, it specifies, the number is specified so how you can make the quorum. So if it's 7, then it's, there always has to be a majority. So you can't, unfortunately, leave it open.
Question. So if we have non-voting members, would they be part of the quorum?
John, I think that's probably a solid no. You can't
Yeah,
have, I
I
mean,
don't-
if it's a voting member, the quorum has to be a
Correct.
number of the voting members.
Correct. The number is based off of voting members, not a combination of either voting or non-voting.
And then I had another question. We have a number of individuals in this group of 9 whose terms are ending. How many have terms that are ending? Sure, of course. Thank you.
I have a question about the counting. So I'm counting 9 of us present. Am I wrong? 9 voting members present. So there are 10. And
My
then
apologies.
according to this, I would think this list lists city staff as a member. So that would be 11.
Correct.
Okay. But the city staff doesn't vote, but is a member for the purposes of quorum.
I believe so I am kind of picking this up from what Carrie had originally started. So I am just as lost
I'm
as
not
some of
blaming
you.
you.
I don't believe that a member of city staff was meant to be part of that quorum number, because it would not make sense.
Okay.
It is meant to be, it should be removed as the overall count towards membership. But it could be noted that, the liaison for the group is the planning director or his or her designee, as opposed to listing them out as a member of the group.
Okay. One more question. Are your goals as planning today to kind of assign us to the existing categories for now, or it's just, is your goal to have a recommendation to take to council?
Have a recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah. If that is to assign people to those categories, then that is the recommendation. But if it is to revise the makeup or composition of this group, then that would be the alternative.
Yeah, a question. So is there an option, if this climate action committee, are the options to leave as is, or to come back to city council for approval of a change, or is city council directing the climate action committee to come back with a change? What specifically is the city council directing the climate action committee to do?
At the very least, we need to clean up the wording. It's confusing, obviously, because we've been misinterpreting it for years now. So at the very least, we need to clean up the wording. So before we take that forward to the city council, we want to hear from the committee what positions they feel are important to require to be filled and what positions could be like in a list of, the remainder of the positions will be filled by representatives from one of the following. I mean, inside city limits, outside city limits, do we need to do both of those? I mean,
So I'm going to push back against that interpretation because my understanding, Jane, at the city council meeting, and I'm looking at Council Member Maurer here, who was also at that meeting, is that the city council, and my memory can be refreshed here by looking at the directions, but my understanding is that the city council directed the Climate Action Committee in the context of a discussion about which positions could be recruited for, directed that the Climate Action Committee come back with a clarification, decide which positions could be recruited for, and that then staff would move forward with that recruitment. There was no provision in the direction from the city council, as I recall, that the issue come back to the city council prior to recruitment. So if planning could please look at that, that's important for purposes of understanding what this council needs to do. Because I think the council authorized, go forward with filling the positions. Just Climate Action Committee, you need to tell us which positions we're recruiting for. Different from what I just heard from you.
So the role here today is limited to who's filling what positions?
The direction, and John, looking at planning department, maybe you can look back at the council minutes, but my understanding, this item has been agendized for a broader discussion, and I don't object to that. What I'm saying is that what the council has specifically directed was that the Climate Action Committee tell us which positions need to be filled, and then staff will go forward to fill them. So that's what my understanding is in terms of what the council required. And again, looking back at the instructions, I think is important, but I think that's important. We have to say which positions, and that could be anything. And that's why I asked the question to our chair here. That's why I asked the question, well, what positions are expiring this year? Thanks.
So I'm hearing that we're having two discussions that both need to happen. But maybe the first one is, maybe let's table the bigger question of what we want to do and answer the council's request. And then we can move on. Does that make sense to planning?
Sure.
Okay. I think what would make sense to me is if we went around and identified what category we think we're in currently, because it may no longer match what we were originally assigned to. Given, like, I know I moved from outside to inside. Do you, yeah, right? Like, we were appointed to different things. So
I think what you're suggesting we do is gather the factual information that might help inform the bigger discussion, I think is what
I
you're
think so.
suggesting. Okay.
Thank you.
And now, but you're asking us to try to recall what we think we were appointed to.
I don't think we can. I may have printed it out. I printed out a bunch of things.
I think we have a roster list. Let me see if I can find it.
That would be a
Okay.
good starting point. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's on the website, yes. Michael Simonitis comes through once again.
All right, so currently we have Emmett Hopkins, a climate sustainability background, Alex Goodman, Climate Action Group, Josh Osomene. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I just make a suggestion? Is there a way to just put this up on the screen? It's on the website. Can we just display or up on the share it via Zoom? For one thing, that helps anyone signing in, members of the public, and also if we're recording. It'll help memorialize it. But I suppose you
So
could keep
there's-
reading for us.
There are a few of these on the list that aren't included as being empty on this, vacant on this list, and it seems like we have too many positions, you know. First of all.
You want to keep going?
Oh, okay, so let's see, where was I? Joshua Somene, ecological background. Kenna Lee, climate background. Lisa Pierce, Climate Action Group. Zeno Swetnick, climate background. Philip Carter, climate background. Youth Representative vacant. Youth Representative vacant. Planning Commission liaison vacant. Ambrosia Thompson, zero waste ecology expert. Diana Gardner-Rich, council member. Sandra Maurer, also council member, and zero waste liaison.
Did I hear ecology background? I don't think that's even on the list.
It's not, yeah.
So Kenna, what I heard was no youth members, no planning commissioner, no Sebastopol business owner, no environmental justice equity background, and no rights of nature background.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, yes. Is that, I'm just looking, planning is nodding, thank you. So of those vacant positions, which ones is the question, which ones do we think we can recruit for? So we know there is one youth member application that's been holding, correct?
Correct.
So clearly we can recruit for that.
Correct.
Question,
Yes.
can we still have the wider conversation about the
Yes.
committee before we kind of go into details?
I think because the council directed planning to bring back the answer to this particular smaller question, we'll make sure that we reach that.
Right, but is that kind of overriding any change we want to
No.
send to city council?
No, it's just a more immediate answer to a question that council has asked for. We can, that's my understanding. We could still propose changes to the structure.
It can be a part two, but part one should be
Yeah.
figuring out what we need to recruit for right now, because that was the direction from city council.
So,
Yeah,
so
but if we make changes, we recruit differently, so what's
So-
the point?
which members' terms are expiring, not renewing?
Does anyone, Joshua has his hand raised.
Joshua's position, Alex's position, I believe Emmett is up, and then Zeno's position. So there's four openings that are coming up at the end, or 4 terms ending at the end of December.
And my understanding is Alex and Joshua have decided they are not renewing.
And I believe, Emmett, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a discussion that you said you may or may not be renewing.
Yeah, I'm not, but I think I was saying I was flexible to fill in if needed for a period, was what you were asking. in
Okay,
your
just
email.
extend for a
Yeah,
period of time.
if it's needed.
Okay. Yeah, so those 4
And
plus the youth.
Zeno, are you planning to renew?
No.
No. Okay. Well, I think when I'm looking at this list, it looks like the recruitable positions are climate background and Sebastopol climate action, but those are also positions that currently have people assigned into them.
And then the youth.
What?
And then the youth position.
And then the youth position. Okay, question about Brown Act compliance, a little bit off topic. Can you have a position and an alternate under Brown? I'm understanding a lot of this, like quorum rules are being driven by Brown Act. Can you have, for example, for a youth member, a voting member and an alternate? Yes.
Can I ask a question of staff? So I'm looking at the way that these positions are listed in the staff report. I don't see anything here. Staff, please correct me if I'm wrong. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see the 5 first bullet points as specifying a number of people in the position. I do not see anything that states that then it just says climate background reside within. To your comment, Kenna, I think that so long as we have the two city council members, 1 planning commissioner, 1 member of city staff, 1 zero waste representative, 2 youth members, we can have as many additional people with climate background. So to your point, or Kenna or Joshua, whoever it said, that the most recruitable description is climate background or Sebastopol climate action. I would actually just advocate for climate background. We could, in fact, go out there and recruit for 5 climate background positions and not violate these rules. Can I just, is that
That's
accurate?
that's how we originally read
Okay.
the and then was corrected by the city clerk as far as how she interpreted those bullet points.
So our longstanding interpretation is exactly as you just described.
Okay.
And Mary's determined that that's not in fact what it says, and that we need to have, the way it reads, we need to have 1 or 2, if it says 2, in each of those categories. So that's why we're like, okay, we got to fix this before we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess my thoughts on requiring that somebody has a climate background or is from the Sebastopol Climate Action Group, there may be wonderful people who don't have a background but want to get involved and want to help. And so I'd hate to make people think they couldn't apply because they didn't have a climate background.
I'll add on that people can submit their application. It is up to the city council to appoint if they deem necessary. We've had that happen with other, we've had multiple categories for other boards where they have approved. It's at the council.
So are you saying, John, that we have to write it, have it like that on the list, or can we just have member of the public,
Well, I think there's 2 issues going on right now. And one is, how do we want it to be framed going forward? And one is, how are we responding about recruitable positions immediately? So in terms of recruitable positions we're working with what we have here, which is the list. And we need to name which of those are recruitable and should be open for recruitment. So I would propose, and I'm open to counter proposals, that we would advise council that we think what is recruitable is youth, climate background, and climate background.
Kenna, I'll just clarify.
But we can't because, right.
No, but Kenna, there is no requirement. The city council did not require that this question of which open positions need to be recruited for come back to the city council. My understanding specifically, because I engaged in this discussion, was that so long as the Climate Action Committee defines which positions are going to be recruited for, staff then goes forward to recruit. That's how it was set up, unless someone on staff, right. So there is no intermediate step where the city council has to approve the positions that are recruited for.
Okay. And the city clerk's interpretation is there needs to be 1 person in each category, but the city council has the leeway to appoint anyone regardless of their whether they fit the categories.
Yeah, I don't understand the city clerk's definition because honestly, how are you going to find someone who resides within Sebastopol city limits but is not one of the other categories? So, or resides outside city limits. So I think there's some confusion about the instructions that planning has received from the city clerk.
So
She's a logical person. So
what would planning like to walk away from in terms of what the council is asking climate committee to provide to planning? What do you need from us?
Okay, I'll try first, and then John can jump in and correct me, and the mayor can too. So I think we're looking for potentially two different things. So we need to answer the council's questions, but if you're all, it sounds like if you're all in agreement on which positions we're moving forward and recruiting for, we don't need to go back to the council. To answer that question, we just recruit. And that's the direction that's been provided by the council. I would like more clarification than that. And our city clerk has determined that if we want to not abide strictly by what it says in this list, then we need to bring that back to the city council. So step A and step B.
So
Is that correct?
Jane, are you saying that we need to stick with this list unless we go back to the council? I see.
Correct.
I understand. Okay.
And then my understanding of recruitable positions was kind of the opposite. Like we need youth, but we have lots of people with climate background. What we're absent is business owner, rights of nature, environmental justice, and I think there was maybe one other category. We have plenty of people in the city, out of city, plenty of people with climate background. So just climate background would not be recruitable because it's filled. So that's kind of my interpretation of the short-term question. You know, I'm still looking forward to the discussion of changing the rules, but I'm not trying to address that yet.
I think the definition of recruitable is maybe let's define recruitable. There's the vacant positions, and then there's positions that people are willing to fill, and they're not aligned. So when we're being asked to define recruit, like what are the recruitable positions? Why wouldn't we just recruit for all vacant positions if we are being held to the list?
Because under the current interpretation of the list, we have to have one from all of those unless it says two. We have to have one from all of those. So if we're recruiting for more climate background broadly, unless they fit in one of those categories, then we're recruiting for something that we can't then seat. See, it's a mess. I want it cleaned
It's
up.
a mess. Okay.
May I speak for just one
Yeah.
second? All right, so when I read this, I do also read it differently than Ms. Gurley, and similarly to Mayor Diana, when it says Climate Action Committee will consist of 11 to 13 members from that's open, right? So like this is kind of like a multiple choice test in some sort of ways. And because it's so multifaceted, many of us blend over.
Absolutely.
This cannot be delineated into you serve this function as like a football team might have a quarterback and a linebacker and a punter and these kinds of things. You just must have a group of people that are able to move forward with our policies and get things done. And it's I think the intention of having specifics were to make sure that we've got zero waste covered, because that's something that not everybody has. Business, that's not something everybody has. That maybe right now we could like slot some of us into one so that we can find a specific thing to recruit for to satisfy Mary Gurley's ambition to get some more people on here. But then we can also, as a group, review the number of people that we need for a specific category or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would propose this could take a long time to do this, but it just seems like we want to recruit for a youth member and we want to recruit for people who reside within city limits and outside the city limits. I'd just leave it there.
Business owner. I like business owner. How about business owner?
So currently vacant we still have the business owner, environmental justice, and equity background, and then also the rights of nature background.
I
So
believe-
those people could be any one of those categories if they live inside the city or outside the city. They could, but to limit ourselves to just those categories, I think might be not to our advantage.
Agree.
Question.
But
Do you guys
we're
need-
recruiting right now under the existing structure and the interpretation that we have from the city clerk.
So it sounds like we don't really have any leeway to do anything except just recruit the vacant positions
Question?
And make recommendations.
and make recommendations. So, but so there's not really a question for the first part. The first
Correct.
part is we'll just recruit the currently vacant positions as defined by city clerk.
Correct.
But we will move on with making a recommendation to city council. That would be something like, we think it's important that we retain 2 city council members and a zero waste representative on the climate action committee. And we think that these other categories are all desirable to have in the committee makeup.
Yes, and so I think it's, it could be as simple as confirming Diana's interpretation of what we just all talked about. These ones are required and the rest of them can come from any of these, or whatever the interpretation is going to be.
So let's see if we can get just a quick show of hands on is there anyone that thinks the 2 city council members should not be required?
Well, I would like to make them non-voting members. So I would open the question about, can we have non-voting members that are liaisons to other members rather than being both on the city council and voting here?
I defer to city staff to say whether you can have a non-voting member, but I believe we asked the question and the answer was no.
The answer practically is no, because you could not have a quorum if you had a number of non-voting members. We could talk about alternatives. That might be something different. So an alternative would become a voting member in the absence of the person that they're an alternative for. But let's not complicate it yet.
Yeah, so
Like my understanding was that if we have a non-voting member, the member doesn't count towards the quorum.
then they're just a member of the public. They're not a member.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm not sure what order the hands came up in, but I saw Phil first.
Like my recommendation would be to pick 3 climate people, would just pick 3 and make them vague for Miss Gurley. Like to say like, okay, so we don't have rights of nature background or general climate, and make it a little bit loose, environmental justice background and or slightly loose, and a business owner and then the other ones can bleed into that because we all fit those other descriptions, being inside and outside of the city limits.
Ambrosia?
I just lost it.
We'll come back to you.
I'm like really focused on what Phil was saying.
So that's a good sign. Okay, so my comment on, I'm sorry, Councilmember Maurer, did you want to weigh in on
Well,
this?
I just have a question. Are we still doing questions? Or are we commenting?
We're
Because
commenting now.
We're commenting because we didn't go out for public comments. So I'm just wondering about the order here.
Formality.
Do we need to open for public comment? We don't have even though we don't have no, I mean, before we close this item, but like we're in the middle of discussing it. Why do we need to take public comment?
Don't we do questions and then
It's
public
questions,
comment? and
public
then-
comment, then discussion.
Got it. Okay. Any public comment?
Or
Speak
any,
up.
okay.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, then you can get on the recording.
Hi, Michael Sonitis, Zero Waste Subcommittee. I was just wondering if you would be also recruiting for the positions that are terming out.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that was 7 positions total? 4.
4 that are going out and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are vacant. So, but the 5 that are vacant, anyway, it's confusing.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
There's overlap. And we do have a Zoom public comment. We'll take you after, Steve. Go ahead on Zoom. You may unmute and make your public comment.
Hey, this is Linda, and EMF Linda, and I got on late, this is my first time attending the Climate Action Committee, but I am delighted to find out that I have good audio, because when I tried to participate and listen to the Budget Committee things, I just could not hear anything. So anyway, it's pretty clear. And technically it seems to be working. But anyway, my only comment on at this point is that I think it'd be really good if they all got some people on there that knew about chemtrails and heat islands that all this development is making on this town. There are just other factors that, in my opinion, do not seem to be being addressed. The geoengineering is widely known, and you need to get some people in there that start recognizing the impact of the development and the density, on climate, raise our temperatures here and do a lot of other nasty things. Not to mention we have the lack of infrastructure, which Sandy, thank you very much, helping me out on that question to try to get assessment
30 seconds.
on our current condition of the water system, the sewer system, and also the roads, which, as you know, are like 40% out of 100. So anyway, that's basically what I have to say. You need to expand your knowledge of the impacts on climate and the chemtrails, which if you look up, there's a lot of crisscrossing, it seems, since the election. Anyway, that's
thank you.
Good. Geoengineering.com and geoengineering.
Thank you for your public comment, Linda. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. It's a little unclear to me, as it probably is unclear to you all. Are we commenting on what the city clerk had said? Are we commenting on the overall, what should the check? Okay, I'm getting a yes. As what? Yeah, as part of the group that started this, and it was a mistake to have this checkbox. It would be so literally taken that we had to actually fulfill these things and check a box that we fit into this particular category. So I'm all for eliminating as many categories as we can. We're just trying to find people that are interested in working on the committee. And I think we can come up with a very pared down list of those categories. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So now officially in comments, we heard Zeno say that he does not think that there should be 2 council members. Does anyone else object to having 2 council members as part of the committee? Yes, Sandy.
I don't object to it, but I think you need to have at least 1 council member. And it would be great to have a planning commissioner too, and a business person and environmental justice person. Let's see.
Sandy, can you clarify which ones you think are essential and should be named and which ones should be in the good to have list?
I think at least 1 council member, a planning commissioner, possibly the zero waste. And I'm thinking about the youth members. I think this could be kind of intimidating situation for them. And maybe if one person would want to mentor 2 youth, that they could meet outside of the meeting, and then that mentor could bring back the recommendations of the youth, just as an alternative idea. And And then, of course, there's going to be more support on council for people who are living within the city limits with the climate background. A business owner, I think, is good. And then the environmental justice equity background could be merged with the rights of nature since it's similar. Or pull out equity and have environmental justice, rights of nature, and then equity separated. But I kind of think it would be helpful if this board was smaller in general, like to pare it down to 7. And I'm looking at 4 members are leaving. And that actually maybe 5, because Diana is retiring from the council this year, so she may or may not be on the board. And if that's the case, that leaves 5 people left. And so it might be a really opportune time to think about paring it back to 7, and then defining what those categories are for those 7 people. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, so just to clarify, what we're trying to do here is, thank you, that was perfect, is to give like each person who's commenting, can you please say how many people you think should be on the council, on the Climate Action Committee, and which roles you think should be defined as necessary, if any, and which roles you think are nice to have, or if there's any that should be struck from the list that we're not even hoping that they would join.
I'm sorry, with that in mind, would you mind, can we have Councilmember Maurer tell us what her final response would be to that? Because she was kind of processing ideas.
I think the total should be 7-member board. I think it'd be easier to work with. I think you need at least 1 council member, an environmental justice person, climate people who live within the city, and a climate person who lives outside of the city, a business owner. Did I say environmental justice? Equity? Yeah, that would be something like that.
And Sandy,
So you're getting a
can you
mix.
are you saying that those should each be named seats that must be filled? And
I think so.
Okay.
I think you're going to want to have the environmental justice as a balance. And the business owner, those are different stakeholders. And the zero waste as well. So you could have, but a total of 7. That's what I would suggest.
thank you. I think Joshua was next, and then Phil.
I feel like the question changes about 3 times before it gets to me, so I'm just trying to keep up here. Back to the city council question. I am not necessarily opinionated about whether it needs to be 1 or 2 council members if we're stripping it down, but I noticed that the council member liaison role to, I forget what it is, SCTPA, ICTA, RCPA, et cetera. We lost one of those appointments in the turnover of city council. Suddenly one of those city council members who was doing those appointments was not in this group. And I don't think that works. So to my mind, that's sort of an appointed pairing, like whoever is going to be doing that with SCTA or CPA should also sit on the Climate Action Committee. I feel similarly about the Planning Commission representative, that is an appointment from Planning Commission that one of them needs to keep in touch, even if they're not coming to every single meeting, but we shouldn't have to recruit for that. It's up to them to decide which of them is going to fill that role for a given season or whatever that might be, because we've had real trouble with that planning liaison. And then to try to answer some portions of the bigger questions, I actively over multiple years was involved in attempting youth recruitment from the high school, and that was really challenging. It was post-pandemic, right? So extra challenging, but there's just so much turnover in the student body, and they're so assailed by other things to deal with in their lives that, they sort of didn't have their act together until they were a senior, and then they would leave, and then we'd have to find somebody all over again. So it was really difficult to find a youth member. So while I value the input of a youth member, I don't know that post should be held open as we absolutely have to have a youth member, or we're not, meeting quorum based on Brown Act rules or whatever. In general, my position would be that aside from assigned roles from the city council and government and planning commission and whatnot, that the rest of the categories be sort of an either or, like remaining members should have one or more of these categories that they're fulfilling. But in general, anybody who's interested in local should be allowed to apply and should be tried. So I think that's most of it. Thank you.
All right, so we've heard two very different visions. One is set roles and another is very open.
Martha, in terms of number, I agree that shrinking it would be great. But one of the strengths of having lots of members was the ability to split into working groups. And the more that you put it down to fewer people, the more each of those individuals shoulders. So I would suggest more like 9-ish or so. You know, in the long term, the committee has become somewhat dependent on working groups, which now have a lot of non-committee members involved. And so that part of the equation needs to be looked at. If the number of appointed members is shrinking, then per force, the number of non-appointed working group side members, not the non-voting member population, kind of needs to go up, I would say. Thank you.
I'm happy to contribute when there's no.
Phil was next. And
Okay.
then, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Phil.
I'm kind of going to shoot down the middle between these two, but I definitely think that there ought to be around 7 people on the climate committee. But 9 is also good. I would, put council, planner, business, and then preference towards climate, waste, energy, transportation, justice, and then a couple of open categories to just round it out with the preference for some of the things that we've already established.
Can I ask you to clarify which of those you think should be required named seats versus the qualities that we want to have?
So the way I was thinking was 1 business owner, 1 zero waste, 1 either energy or transportation, because I think those overlap a little bit, and then an environmental justice, and then the rest are quite open. That can fit some of the other categories because they may or may not be around and we just need people to be here.
Okay, thank you. Diana?
Yeah, I really appreciate the discussion, number one. I'd vote for 1 city in terms of voting members, 1 city council person, 1 zero waste representative, 2 with climate action background, and 3 to be filled with all those variety of characteristics. So I'd call that aspirational with a total of 7.
Just to clarify, when you say 2 with a climate action background, are you saying from Sebastopol Climate Action or with a climate background?
I'm saying climate action background, and then I would further require
a former member of the citizen group.
no
When you
climate action
just
background.
climate, like okay.
Yeah, I mean, how is
clarify.
it
Because
described?
climate action was like Sebastopol Climate Action or other local climate group representative versus climate background is the other category.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
I just wanna
as
clarify which one you were
described
talking about.
in it was climate background. And then I would also, so I'd say 1 city council, 1 zero waste rep, 2 climate background, and then require that at least 2 come within the city limits and at least 1 come from outside the city limits. And then as to and that could be any one of those, any one of the 7. And then as to the other characteristics, I would propose that we list those as aspirational goals. The remaining 3 positions to be filled with individuals who, and then you can list them, who meet 1 or more of the following categories. Youth, I think remaining as business owner, Sebastopol Climate Action, environmental justice equity, rights of nature, and I would add in the climate background. So the idea is I would have 4 assigned positions, and the remaining 3 would be general positions where all of the characteristics that are listed could be taken into consideration.
So,
I actually didn't mean to leave off the council and the planning member as part of the group that I was listing.
And my concern about the planning position is we haven't filled it. So
Yeah, I think we all agree that it would be ideal to have a planning commissioner who comes, but since we have tried many times and a few different people have stepped up for that role and been unable to maintain the commitment due to the amount of time it is, I just not sure it's realistic to expect that because we want it should be in a required category that takes one of our quorum spots. Zaino?
Yeah, I still believe that you can have non-voting members that don't count toward the quorum. And I think it's important to have a planning person here, as somebody, a city council, zero waste, and they can be non-voting members. And they will not count toward the quorum. So I think it's important to have like 7 so that we can make a quorum.
So I'm hearing you say that you think we should have 7 members on the committee, but that should not include council or zero waste.
Because they're non-voting members.
But I just want to clarify for you, we've been told we cannot have non-voting members.
I think we can, I disagree.
Okay. I think we'll have to see if there's a will of the group to ask for a city's attorney, like however we would ask that question. Steve is a working group member. Yeah, we have volunteers, but I don't think we can compel the city. Anyway, Lisa.
I think 7 is a good number. I'd go with that. I'd recommend 1 council member, ideally with the RCPA representative, but not a requirement. As far as the planning commissioner coming to us, they have a really lot of work, that committee. They have really long meetings and a lot of responsibility those volunteers do. I think we should go to them rather than have them expect that they come to us. I think that's asking an awful lot. So if somebody is willing to, I watch them online oftentimes later, but somebody might want to step up for that role and actually attend the meetings if they want to. Other than that, I think there should be, besides 1 council member, there should be somebody from Zero Waste. And above that, it should just be general with the qualification, the aspirational ideas like Diana was suggesting, but not requirements. And I don't think there should be inside city limits, outside city limits. To me, that's kind of irrelevant. So those are my suggestions.
I'm hearing a wide diversity of opinion, but I'm going to try to summarize what I think is like the compromise position here and see if that seems like something we are interested in. So it looks like perhaps we would all be able to live with a 7-member climate action committee with 1 city council member who is or is not required to be the RCPA liaison, 1 zero waste representative, and then the rest of the categories listed are desirable characteristics, perhaps adding energy background or transportation background. Does anyone?
I would add environmental justice to that list.
It's already on there.
Oh, okay.
Like we're saying all the things that are already there
Okay,
are still desirable characteristics. They're just not required seats.
okay. My comment about the SCPA liaison is that right now, there is a council member who is a liaison to that. But when the council members choose, well, they ask for this position to be on the Climate Action Committee, and this person did not ask to be on the committee. So I'm not sure if you said we want the rep to the SCPA to be on the Climate Action Board, they may or may not volunteer to do that. I mean, this person didn't volunteer.
Well, I think the question is, could the council say these are paired appointments. So if you want RCPA, then you also are climate action.
I think the council could ask that. I'm not sure. It might have to be an agenda item. So I'm not sure how that would work. Mayor, do you have a comment?
Yeah, my comment would be that I don't, my suggestion is that you have one city council member as a specified position on the Climate Action Committee, and that you not specify that it has to be the SCTA, RCPA representative or the Zero Waste Sonoma representative. I would feel comfortable, having been a city council person, to have anyone on the city council who is interested and engaged with this topic volunteer to be on this Climate Action Committee. And I mean, for instance, let's look at Phil as an example. He won't necessarily be appointed to, he's likely to be on the council. We'll know for sure official results. He won't necessarily be appointed to SCTA, RCPA, or to Zero Waste Sonoma Board, but he would be a very helpful representative on this Climate Action Committee. So I would leave out those specifics, but I'd bump it back to Councilmember Maurer because I may be missing something here.
Go ahead, Joshua.
I just want to question, not contest or argue against, but we keep coming back to this zero waste representative position, and I'm wondering why that one is being called out when various other categories of representation, the subject matter, we have
I have an
several
answer.
different working groups. There's one of them. Also, if the council member, doesn't necessarily need to be the SCTA rep, but might be the zero waste rep, maybe then that council member is filling multiple roles, including that zero waste thing. So I'm just not sure why the zero waste is standing out.
Well, our committee was joined with the Zero Waste had its own committee, right? And so they had their own structure, and then we were joined together as committees, and the purpose was not to subsume them, but to work with them, consolidate. So as consolidation goes, having been part of multiple corporate consolidations, the intention to retain all the parts never happens. Go ahead, Sandy.
So I also think it's important to specify that people with climate background, that the majority live within the city, and not specify that, because, it's okay to have some people outside the city, but we had just received comments, council received comments, putting down the fact that because people were living outside the city, they shouldn't be on the committee. So I just think it's important to stress that and not minimize it. So.
Okay. Can we all live with a 7-member climate action committee with one council member, one zero waste representative background, and then a recommendation that we seek youth, people with climate backgrounds, business owners, local climate group representatives, environmental justice, equity background, rights of nature background, energy background, transportation background, period. And we recommend that the majority of the Climate Action Committee, or at least half, reside within city limits. Joshua?
Just a small suggestion. I personally, I think it's important to have people from outside city limits, and that having just the city limits focus is like putting blinders on, because Sebastopol is a hub for a much bigger bunch of people who drive here, which is a very big climate issue. So as soon as you stop thinking outside city limits in terms of Sebastopol identity, I think you're really checking out. However, that being said, I would think of it as an expectation that in general applicants are going to either live in Sebastopol proper or in Sebastopol zip code. And if they don't, then maybe there's a question of, okay, if you don't live locally, why do you want to be on this committee and why should we? So it's not really a recruitment thing so much as a general expectation with the potential for exception.
I like everything you said, but I would also say that maybe a requirement is that they live within the 95472 zip code instead of inside outside.
So go ahead, Diana.
I'm concerned, first of all, I don't think you listed business owner. And, oh, you did, okay, great. And then I like the idea of majority within the city, but I like the idea also of one of the aspirational goals, or maybe a requirement, being at least one who's outside the city limits, but within 95472. So that would be one comment. And then the second comment is that, are we really comfortable? We're not requiring that anyone on this committee have climate background. And that seems like a mistake. Seems like we should have, I would say, someone with climate background, because in this composition that has been described by you, you could have a city council member, the zero waste rep, and a bunch of other people, none of whom had climate background.
I guess the question is whether we're trying to council proof it. So, because it would be the council appoints the members. So if we feel we need to designate climate background as a requirement, then that means that we're saying we don't trust the council would choose people with the climate, would make that discernment. And I feel the same way about the inside outside city limits. Like, we don't have to require that a certain number be inside or outside. It's the council's discretion to decide upon appointment that balance.
Yeah, I still hold my position, but I understand what you're saying. I think the Climate Action Committee has to express their voice, but it's just my opinion.
What would that look like, Diana? Hold on one second.
That would look like what you described, which I think was one city council person, one zero waste representative. I would go back to 2 with climate action background, and then your summary statement about the remaining positions. And then how you add the inside outside city limits, I don't know, but something that would allow a minimum of people to 2 people to have reside within the city limits, and at least one person to be outside the city limits, but within 95472.
Okay, I think I got it.
Okay.
Sandy, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking that you would, so there's one council, one zero waste, and 5 others, right? And so I thought you were just going 5 with a climate background who are also business or environmental justice or transportation, et cetera. 3 within the city and 2 outside the city limits within the 95472. But I would think that they all should have a climate background, even the business owner, but it's just me.
And we have heard one voice point out that we might not want to require all members to have a climate background because it limits people who are interested in getting involved. Zeno?
Yeah, I remember that besides this list of positions, the city also has a list of criteria that they use in interviewing. So that list covers climate background. And so to require climate background, whatever that means, independently as a position, is kind of not needed, I believe.
All right, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something and I'm not sure what it is. Okay, I'm going to try again.
You could also do thumbs up on various things
Yes.
and just get rid of them.
Okay, is everybody a thumbs up on one council member, or at least show us your thumbs? Okay. 1 zero waste representative. All right. Requirement for 2 climate background members. Oh, those are confusing thumbs.
Oh.
Okay.
I think the question you might want to ask is minimum of 2 climate
Minimum of 2.
action. because-
Minimum of 2 climate background members. Okay. A requirement that at least half reside within Sebastopol city limits.
Clarification, half of the total seven.
The
We
total
haven't,
7.
we haven't agreed on 7, but half of the total members on the Climate Action Committee.
A requirement that
Majority,
the majority live within Sebastopol city limits.
yes.
Really? Okay. A requirement, okay. I think that's all the required positions that are being brought up. Okay. How many feel comfortable with 7 members? And I'm sorry, someone wanted to speak. Phil.
If you saw me wiggle desperately, it's because I really kind of feel like everybody ought to have some version of climate background.
Interesting.
Does the group feel that we should have a requirement for more than 2, let's say 4 members to have a climate background? All right, I think 2 is the winner.
Meet in the middle.
I'm just thinking, what if there's 2 high school students who want to join and they have no climate background, but they really want to get involved? I don't think we should say, no, I'm sorry, you can't come because you don't have a climate background.
I think we can trust the discretion of council.
Could we, I'm sorry, Josh.
I was just going to say, there's no way you're going to get 2 high school students sign up for 2 years, so don't worry.
What about that a majority of the total Climate Action Committee members have climate backgrounds?
Yeah, oh, good.
Is everyone okay
That's
with
the
that?
same as 4. Interesting.
Well,
Okay.
no. Well, but the point is, no matter what, it's a statement of
Yeah.
majority presence of expertise. I'm okay with that. Oh, we got it.
All right, Alex.
Of course it is. I just read through at least the stuff that was attached, and I didn't see any real definition of a climate background. I think that there's not. So I think that's the hard, I think that's the challenging part, is I feel like we're going back and forth on something that's not really truly defined. So is that like climate as a profession, climate as studied in college? I think that's climate as you're excited about working on climate, because I think you're joining the committee to do that. So I just think that's a little bit of like the argument of what does that mean? And if we're going to define it, I think we just keep everything is, I think what I learned from the last couple years here is that we can keep everything as simple as possible. It makes the longevity of our process easier. So, I think whatever the number we decide is fine, but I just want to clarify that if we don't really have a clear definition, 2 or 4 isn't going to make a huge difference either way. So maybe going with a lower number on a lot of these just makes the flexibility of the people that we have, and the fact that we have people that are excited to be here, I think is a real value. So I don't want to put too much of a hole on just reframing here. Thank you.
Thank you, because I think that some people might see climate background and think that means a professional. Yeah, and I don't think we're there.
Okay, so do we want to revisit whether we're requiring, it looks at last count, the majority was going to be required to have a climate background. Do we want to consider backing away from requiring that the majority have a climate background?
I see a peace sign.
All right, I think that there is a strong feeling to require climate background. I'm going to read this whole thing again. Once a 7-member committee with 1 council member, 1 zero waste representative, and a majority of appointed members will have a climate background. And the hope or the aspiration is that we would be recruiting from the categories, not categories, that the applicants may or may not have some of these characteristics. be a planning commissioner, be a youth age 17 to 23, be a business owner, be a member of a local climate group, have an environmental justice or equity background, have a rights of nature background, have an energy or transportation background. Did I leave anything out? And then this issue of residing in city limits, they would reside within the 95472 zip code and leave the balance of within and without city limits to council discretion at time of appointment. How many thumbs up do we get for that whole bundle? All right, so those of you who are not thumbs up, do you have a very strong objection to any part of it?
I think when it comes to recruitment, it's going to be better for the city to be able to say, we need 3 people who are residing within the city limits and 2 people who are in the 95472 zip code. So they're looking to fill that slot. I don't know, to me, that makes sense. The zero waste, well, the council person will be residing within the city. The zero waste person, not necessarily. But if you have 3 of those additional spots plus the council, that makes a majority living within the city, or 4. I just think it needs to be specified in terms of recruitment.
I think the group's deferral of specification was to increase flexibility in recruitment and empower council to set limits on people inside, outside limits if needed.
Can I ask, Councilmember Maurer, are you feeling as representative elected from this community that there's a need to ensure that at least some number of individuals on the Climate Action Committee actually reside within the city limits? Speaking as an elected.
Yes, I think the majority need to reside within the city limits, which would be 4 out of the 7 need to reside within the city limits. And we know that the council member will be within the city limits. We don't know about the zero waste representative, but that's why I'm suggesting that you specify that 3 reside within the city limits and 2 reside outside or within the 95472 zip code.
Do others agree that this should be specified in the list?
I think that it may be pretty tough to fill this committee, and we might have an excellent candidate who unfortunately lives outside the city limits or unfortunately lives within the city limits, and that space will not be available to them. So I think we're kind of biting our hand by saying, no, even though you'd be an excellent member, you can't apply because we have that already filled up.
So I would weigh in support of Elisa's position on this, and also if we can ask staff, because it's been really hard to recruit for these positions, and there's been a couple of comments here, Councilmember Mara, that recognize that the ultimate appointment is going to be by the city council. So we inherently have the city council weighing in, and to the extent the city council looks at the candidates and goes, well, there's no one from within the city limits, and that's important, the city council can make that decision. But staff is...
I would agree with you. Yeah. It's been difficult for one, the amount of members has been a difficult task. I think revising from what's already been discussed so far makes the recruitment a lot easier. But I agree with, having specifics on the reside within or without city limits is kind of too hard. And
does planning need a motion from
Yes.
the committee?
I saw that Joshua had his hand
Oh,
up.
sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, just one more thing on the inside outside front. Given that this committee has no actual decision-making power or political power, it's just an advisory committee. And so I don't think that the city should be threatened by people advising from outside of town. It's entirely possible that the majority of people who pass through Sebastopol and shop in Sebastopol do not live within city limits. So again, it's, as long as somebody's somewhere in the area and cares about these subjects, I think it's better to allow for them.
I do a lot of stuff in Sebastopol. I don't live in the city limits, but I live in 95472, and I've had a lot of limitations on things I can participate in. So coming from a personal level, I feel like it's pretty important to let folks, who are still within this 95472, because this is my town. So yeah, just a little.
All right. Anyone have anything burning to say before can the chair make a motion? I've never made a motion from the chair seat. Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we, the Climate Action Committee, are sending a recommendation to council that the number of committee members be reduced to 7, that those 7 include seats for 1 council member, 1 zero waste representative. Now I'm forgetting what we decided, and 2 people with climate backgrounds. Or did we say majority?
Was that a minimum too?
A minimum 4 with a climate background. Those, do we want to say those 4 can include the zero waste and the council member? If the council member and the zero waste have a climate background, that would count towards. So it's not that they're seats.
Getting back to Alex, I would try to make it as simple as possible.
Okay, how can we make it simple?
How about just the majority of the Climate Action Committee must include individuals who have a climate background? Whatever that is.
Whatever that means.
Right.
So it's
that
not
would-
named seats. The only named seats is a council member and a zero waste representative.
That would mean that the majority of the 7 would have to reside within the city.
We're not
would
talking
have
about-
to have a climate background, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is
because
that
that would
simple?
be 4 of the.
Yeah. So 2 named seats. Of the 5 remaining seats, we recommend that recruitment be targeted towards youth aged 17 to 23, people with a climate background, Sebastopol business owners, local climate group representatives, environmental justice and equity background, rights of nature background, energy background, or transportation background.
And did you include climate background?
I did.
Okay.
But
Sorry to, but
Hold on.
But I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
Just on youth wise, 17 to 23, like we've had 16-year-olds apply.
sorry,
so-
17 to 23 is just what's written on my piece of paper. So
okay.
maybe we should just say youth without the age limit. Thank you for that simplification.
And-
All members must reside within the 95472 zip code.
Okay.
And a majority of the 7 members must have a climate background.
Can I ask a question about the use of the term recruitment must target? I think that's placing too great a responsibility
sorry.
on staff. So what can we say instead of that language? It's that we're
good?
seeking applicants.
Yes.
Hopeful that, hopeful,
So,
what's the wording?
qualities,
Desired
Desired.
characteristics.
desired characteristics.
Would include. Subjunctive is very
Desired
effective.
characteristics
It would include
include.
the following.
Okay. Do I need to say that again, or did you guys get it? Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Do I have to do anything before we vote? Just checking.
Any
Any
further
further
discussion?
discussion?
I'm wondering if we need to define for staff the positions because like, for example, what you have now and what's needed. So what do they actually need to recruit for? So right now you have zero waste, you have a council, you have 2 climate action, I'm assuming, so I'm looking at Kenna and Lisa and Phil are the 3 other people. So right now you have 5, so you need to recruit for 2.
Can we make that a second motion?
Sure, I just wanted to clarify about that.
Yeah, that's a confusingly different question. So on this motion, does
Mary's
Mary
there.
want to say something?
Mary just has a really quick comment about the recruitment. So if you want to go ahead and finish your motion and we can come back to Councilmember
you.
Mowers.
Okay. So all for the motion.
I'll do
Thank you. Thank you.
Ambrosia?
Somebody else do that. Yes.
Mayor Rich,
Yes.
Chair Lee,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Chair Somanai,
Yes, please.
Phil? Yes. Zeno? And Councilmember Maurer
Yes.
and Alex.
Yes.
Okay, and I will note that Emmett did leave the meeting before we before he had a chance to vote on this, so he will abstain from that vote.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Mary, go ahead.
So I just have a comment. So if we're changing, or a recommendation, if we're changing, making a recommendation to the city council about the changing of the committee, I would probably recommend holding off on the recruitment. And the reason being is, like, right now you have to recruit for what those vacancies are. So if we're clear on I'm not sure that you would want to recruit for those vacancies if we're changing the makeup.
Can I ask Mary a question? So given the current wording, could this committee request that, for instance, 3 positions be recruited for that had climate background? Would that be consistent with the wording that you're more intimately aware of than the rest of us, that defines the committee makeup?
So my understanding is the current, and my apologies for not reading all the staff report and all that. My understanding of the Climate Action Committee is they are specific positions. So, there's one that lives within city limits. There's one that lives outside city limits. There's one with, I forgot the word I'm looking for, but they're specific. So if we're changing those, because right now those are what you would need to recruit for.
Mm-hmm.
So the composition of the committee, which would be 11 to 13 members, and whichever of those positions are vacant, you would not be able to go out and recruit for general climate background. You would need to recruit for whatever those specific positions are. So if you're looking not to fill those specific positions and you just want the, desired characteristics of a climate background that include A, B, C, D, if it's possible to hold off until this goes to council, that would be my recommendation. Otherwise, you're going to be recruiting for an 11 to 13 member climate action committee.
Yeah, I guess my question though is so when do the terms expire? Can I ask that question? We have, I think,
December 31st.
So you have 4 positions that are expiring December 31st, and we currently have on this Climate Action Committee, if we counted correctly, 10. So that reduces the Climate Action Committee to 6. And that means that this Climate Action Committee cannot meet and make decisions because it's set up as a minimum 11-member board. I think with 6 people, that's below the quorum, isn't it?
Can I ask a question? Is any of the members' terms that are expiring willing to stay on for a couple months until the issue is decided?
Emmett, one of the members whose term is coming up did mention that he could potentially stay on for a few months while we figure it out. And then Joshua as well. Okay. So we would have 8.
And a quorum is 7 currently?
Yeah.
Yeah, that just makes, and also let's recognize that I will not be at those meetings because my term is ending. So therefore we're down again to 7. This is just not a workable outcome. So I would agree that long-term, the city council needs to weigh in on the composition of this Climate Action Committee, But unless we are going to decimate this Climate Action Committee and put it in a position where it cannot function until the city council can address this proposal, then we need to find a way to recruit sufficient members to allow the Climate Action Committee to continue in some form. I guess one of the options would be to not currently propose any changes in the Climate Action Committee and simply go out for recruitment in categories that are already within the 11 to 12. I'm just looking at this practically. Councilmember Maurer, I'm sorry, Ken.
Oh, yeah, I have a question. I know that we've had a youth applicant sitting for a long time. Is there a reason that we can't go ahead and interview and seat that youth applicant, or that we have to wait for the recruitment process?
I think I guess we could schedule that for an upcoming meeting. I know typically we've done applications all at the same time.
And we've had at least one youth applicant just be interviewed on her own and appointed.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to put out there, the assessment, the existence of this Climate Action Committee as a separate entity continues to be examined by the city staff. So I would encourage this Climate Action Committee that is already invested in the future of what work has been done here to really focus on what is the best way to continue to function as decisions are made. And getting down to 7 members is not the best way to function from my perspective. There was someone who wanted to make a comment. I'm sorry, Ken.
No. To whoever wanted to make a comment.
So I'm wondering, this is a question for our Assistant City Manager, Mary Gurley. Is it possible to get the change in composition, in the board composition? Because we just discussed this and voted on changing it to a 7-member board. Is it possible to get that on the agenda the first week in December?
It's my understanding in planning department, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there a discussion about the Climate Action Committee on the December 3rd meeting or December 17th? There's an informational item, I believe.
Yes, I don't remember which meeting it was scheduled for, but it is one of the December meetings.
I believe it's a December 3rd is an informational, and then the December 17th is the discussion about the composition of the climate action. I would, if for me personally, and I advocated for this for planning commission, design review and all that, because we were city staffs and similar talks, I would recruit for your open positions. You do not have to appoint, but when you're doing the recruitment, you could let applicants know when they're submitting their applications that, you know, there will be a conversation on December 17th about the composition, but I move forward because that decision has not been made. And my professional opinion is to recruit for those open positions and at least get the application out there. And again, if the composition changes to 7, we can have that discussion, but at least giving the applicants knowledge that there's a potential that this may be reduced. But I would recommend advocating for the open, go ahead and recruit for your 11 to 13 members, because you're going to be short, like the mayor said.
So I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, does the committee need to, we don't normally decide we're recruiting. That happens without us. Do you need any action from the committee around recruitment?
My understanding is not if you were going to proceed as Mary just indicated. We would only need to go back to the city. We could do that, just give the direction and the recruitment begins. We will be going back to the city council only with these suggested changes.
And I'm going to jump in really quick, just to be sure though, we need to make sure which positions are vacant and which ones are coming open. Those are the ones we need to recruit for.
And that was,
we have established those. That is
Yes.
the planning commissioner, the youth members, the business owner, the environmental justice equity background, and rights of nature background.
what we haven't determined, Ken, or we haven't clarified is what positions are currently held by Joshua, Alex, Emmett, and Zeno.
Yeah, we did. They're all climate background because this was being held differently. So that's not going to change vacant all of the people leaving are in categories that someone else who is staying is also in. So I guess we also have the categories of someone outside city limits and someone inside city limits are recruitable categories for the time being, which makes the recruitment much more flexible.
Can we do that? Can we also recruit for the 5 open positions? Are you suggesting, Kenna, that we would recruit for the 5 open positions plus the 95472 and plus the city in order to fill the one of the 2 that have terms ending?
Yes.
Okay. Does that make sense to planning? Is that clear? So it would be recruiting for the 5 positions that are currently vacant, plus also listed in the description currently, and open when the 4 terms expire. The reside outside Sebastopol city limits within the zip code and reside within Sebastopol city limits.
Like if those are positions, they're currently vacant. So if we're considering anything on the list to be a position, those 2 are vacant positions.
Yeah.
Okay.
That can be filled. Does that make sense, Jane?
So of the 4 that are coming open, all 4 of them reside within the climate background position bullet point.
Or climate action, local climate group representative bullet point.
What I'm hearing is that those 4 people are not on the list of approved positions to the extent that Mary Gurley has defined them.
Correct.
We can only have 1
Yes.
climate background and only 1 Sebastopol climate action or other local climate group, which means when those 4 positions expire under the current arrangement, one of them has to be a 95472 inside and one of them has to be a 95472 outside city limits.
I can move to an equity position if needed. Council would approve me moving to an equity position.
We've actually never filled that position.
That's what I'm saying. I fit that criteria. I have a background in equity.
Okay. So that would allow the recruitment of, I've lost track, but maybe the planning department has. It's an illogical description that we're trying to work with, but it sounds like we could at least recruit because for the 5 that are open, plus we have 4 terms that are ending. 1 can be 95472 inside city limits. 1 can be 95472 outside city limits.
And then if Phil's appointed to council, does he lose his current climate background seat? So then that would, if I moved to equity and Phil moved out of climate background, then that opens up climate background.
So I do just want to point out that on the official list, it doesn't say how many
I know
of any of these things. So it can, right. So
We're just working.
it could be all climate background.
Yeah, Mary
according to this list, it's fine.
Yeah,
I understand.
We understand what we've just the opinion of the city at this point in time is to fill each of these as 1, except for the ones that are listed as 2, and so that's what we're working with.
I know, deep and cleansing breath. Okay, so we have 5 that are open. We have 1 95472 inside city limits, 1 95472 outside city limits, and then are we also doing a climate background?
It depends on whether you can move me and Phil gets elected. That would free up climate background.
Well, Phil's going to get elected.
Can I ask a question? I'm just curious. What does the election have to do with the appointment?
Because Phil is filling a climate background seat. So if he's moving, I don't know if him becoming a city council member changes his ability to fill a citizen seat.
Yeah, it would have to be a council appointment to this.
Right.
There you go.
So that's why.
Perfect. Yep.
And
got it.
so now, without all these machinations, and I understand their machinations, but let's just recognize that now this group would be again down to 6 if Phil is no longer on this Climate Action Committee. So going through all these machinations is the only way that this Climate Action Committee can continue to function until there's a reassessment of the composition.
Right. So I think we're clear.
I think-
You guys are going to recruit the vacant positions.
Yes.
Yes. Anybody not clear and ready to move on?
No, that's all I was going to say is just go for it. Yeah, like, fill all
Yay.
the positions.
So are they filling 7? Is that where we're at? Or 8?
If we're fortunate enough to get that many applicants that actually qualify for those
You're
individual
not going to
slots.
fill
I
7,
understand, but since we're, which positions, just want to be clear. Okay.
Okay. I trust that planning would clarify if they were unclear. All right. So thank you all so much. We had another action item on the agenda, which was a fleet electrification letter, which we clearly do not have time to take up. I apologize. I did not realize this was going to be so complicated and require so much time. The fleet electrification.
Can I make a?
Yes.
So I will withdraw the letter, and I will send it on a personal, within city limits, citizen type thing.
I'm happy to agendize it next time as the
No,
priority item.
There's so many else things to do. We spent like 2 hours on this issue. I think it's better for me to send it
Okay.
city council without discussion.
So you're withdrawing that item?
Yeah.
I thought it was a good letter.
Yes, me too.
And I'm sorry, Kenna, but just to be clear, is Zeno then acting as an individual and there won't be any reference to the Climate Action Committee in his letter?
He used the words private citizen. So
Okay, I was
would
just
assume
reading the
so.
letter. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The letter is currently signed by me, but I did not sign the letter yet. And I'm not within that role of that. Okay, so we're tabling items D through F, website revisions, work plan revisions, and recruitment planning. I feel like we did discuss some recruitment planning, so we'll consider that done for the time being. The website revisions and work plan revisions, I would appreciate if the members could really look at those 2 documents that you now have and make notes, prepare notes for how you want those to really look next time. On the proposed website changes document, there are highlighted sections that would require some expertise. So we'll be looking for volunteers to propose the text for the highlighted sections. We do have a citizen volunteer who's offering to write the gray water section or draft the gray water section. So please look at those 2 things, the work plan, and come prepared to really dig in so that we can get in December a 2025 work plan ready to go and start moving forward with these website changes. Letting everyone know as a chair report that I am hoping to step down from the chair position and remain on the committee moving forward next year. I have had a lot of personal changes in my life over the years since taking this position and would prefer to use my energy on this committee to serve as potentially a volunteer coordinator or outreach member. But I will remain in the position until we're able to fill it. I will be out of town in January, so we will discuss in December whether we will cancel the January meeting because I will not be able to facilitate it.
Kenna, can I say a quick goodbye? So I just want to say this is my last Climate Action Committee meeting, and I just want to thank everyone.
We do have
for-
council report coming up.
Okay.
Yes.
Zip it. Got
All
it.
right. So if anyone has input regarding the next meeting agenda, currently we have our CPA planning to present to us, work plan and website changes. So we have a pretty full agenda for December unless there's something urgent.
I wanted to comment on the gray water thing because I went through a process with the guy putting the gray water proposal together, and I know that that has moved off to the side. it was my hope that he would at some point come in and talk to the committee about the proposal.
Can we talk about this?
Well, I thought that was, this is just an
offline.
agenda suggestion.
Oh,
That
as an
he-
agenda
he
suggestion.
encouraged to
Okay.
come in at some point and present to the committee, because I felt like more input to flesh out the proposal.
Yeah, great. Thank you. January or later. Anyone else? And please feel free to email me and Joshua while he's still here regarding agenda items. And planning department, can you give us a 4-minute report?
I just have a quick one. I want to invite folks. This Thursday, we will be having a workshop for the Downtown Sustainable Transportation Grant. This is the first of a few that will be coming throughout the rest of this year, going into next year. This is looking at kind of the downtown core and revitalizing pedestrian safety, whether that's biking, walking, even vehicle traffic. So we are, that will be at the Art Center from 3 p.m. until 7 p.m. So you show up throughout that time frame. There will be kind of 2 presentations. So one very early, around 3:30 or so, and then another one about 6:30 or so. So yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. All right, city council report.
Okay, so yeah, I am done with my term December 3. It's been a pleasure to work with staff and with the Climate Action Committee as a group. I feel like this is an incredible, very action-oriented and very productive, not a lot of blah, 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 very action-oriented group. And I've really, really enjoyed and have felt very honored to be part of all of your decision-making. And really look forward to seeing the great things that you do in the future. So just a quick thank you.
Sandy, do you want to say anything
Thank
before we
you,
all
Diana.
thank Diana?
Let's see, we finished scoring the garbage proposals and we're moving forward into negotiation. The city's doing that. It's all confidential, but I am able to say we completed a certain section and then they're moving forward. At the Zero Waste Group, they were talking about wrapping up the Purple Cup program and talking about possibility of applying for another round. And I suggested that maybe it could come to Sebastopol. We'll see if they can get here or not. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, but I did have one other comment to Councilmember Maurer. Don't we have a bicycle pedestrian item coming up on the agenda?
Yes.
Planning, yes.
The active transportation plan will have the draft proposal to city council next week at their meeting for kind of final input before the draft becomes final. And that would come back to city council early 2025. So January, February for final adoption.
Okay, but I understand that it includes the county revisiting the county bicycle route plan. Is that correct?
It's the city's bicycle pedestrian plan. So the county is doing a overall countywide plan, and then they're doing individual ones for each city. Sebastopol's individual bike and pedestrian plan hasn't been updated since 2014.
Okay.
So they're
And
revising that plan.
does that item that's coming to the agenda have anything to do with the Apple Blossom Trail that's been of interest to
Yes.
citizens?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that was
Very much
important
so.
for Climate Action Committee members to know about. Thanks.
And both the county and city plans are currently posted in draft form, and there is still room for public comment.
Yes, public comment is up until the end of November. So a few more weeks.
All right, thank you. Well, I, for one, want to thank Diana because she has put in so many hours, like teaching Joshua and I how to function as city chairs. Not that we've become so professional, or at least I can't speak for myself, but just, you know, really being, I think, like the den mother to our Boy Scout troop here. And just there's been a lot of time that she's put in that I think is probably invisible to everybody else on the committee, of helping move our projects forward and helping things happen. And I'm just really grateful to you for the amount of mentoring that you provided.
Right back at you.
Anyone else want to say anything before we adjourn? I think they're hungry. Okay. This meeting is now adjourned until our next meeting of December 10th, where we'll have our CPA here talking to us about how we can really leverage each other to make like concerted climate action in our new political environment. It'll be very exciting. December 10th. Oh, who? I'm not sure. It's their team is putting together a presentation. So I think multiple members. Jane might know. We're adjourned.
Recording stopped.
That was like weirdly more challenging than I expected.